Welcome back. Tonight we're taking a sobering trip to the world's most precarious places, countries teetering on the edge where brink of collapse is just the daily forecast. This isn't about gawking at disaster, it's about understanding the real human struggles behind the headlines. These nations are rich in history and culture, but right now, they're navigating chaos that would make any travel agent quit. We'll explore 10 countries on the brink. What's happening, why, and what it means for the people living there. It's not a vacation, but it's a crucial look at the fragility of stability and the resilience of the human spirit. There will be some questionable analogies because, well, that's how I cope. Let's begin. First up, Venezuela, a country with the world's largest oil reserves, yet its economy has imploded spectacularly. Years of economic mismanagement and political chaos have led to hyperinflation so severe that the bolivar is worth less than the paper it's printed on. People use stacks of cash as napkins, and basic necessities like food and medicine are scarce. The so-called Maduro diet isn't a fad, it's a grim reality of widespread hunger. Hospitals lack supplies, and treatable illnesses often become death sentences. Politically, the country is paralyzed by a power struggle, with protests, crackdowns, and a climate so polarized it makes cable news look tame. Millions have fled, creating a massive refugee crisis and draining the country of talent and hope. Once prosperous, Venezuela is now a cautionary tale of how quickly fortunes can reverse. Crime is rampant, and daily life is a fight for survival. The collapse is staggering, and recovery, while possible, will be a long, perilous road. Venezuela is holding on by a thread, a stark reminder of how fragile prosperity can be. It's a tragedy unfolding in real time. The world watches, but for Venezuelans, every day is a struggle to endure. On to the next. Next, Syria, a country whose civil war has turned ancient cities into ruins and lives upside down. What began as pro-democracy protests spiraled into a brutal, multi-sided conflict involving the Assad regime, rebels, extremists, and foreign powers. The result, hundreds of thousands dead, cities like Aleppo and Homs reduced to rubble, and the largest refugee crisis since World War II. Over half the population has been displaced, millions dependent on aid, and the healthcare system deliberately targeted and destroyed. The economy is shattered, infrastructure demolished, and a generation of children has grown up knowing only war. Trauma runs deep, and rebuilding means more than bricks. It means healing a fractured society. Even where fighting has slowed, the country remains divided and unstable, carved up by domestic and international actors. The suffering continues, often far from the headlines. Syria is a grim testament to the world's ability to watch a nation burn for over a decade. The path to peace is unclear, and the scars will last generations. For Syrians, survival is a daily battle. The world's attention may have faded, but the crisis endures. Syria remains firmly on the brink. Let's move on. Yemen, site of the world's worst humanitarian crisis, yet often overlooked. A civil war, fueled by regional powers, has devastated the country, dismantling its ability to sustain itself. Blockades and bombings have triggered a man-made famine. Millions are starving in a country that imports 90% of its food. Disease, especially cholera, has spread as healthcare and sanitation collapse. Aid is insufficient and often blocked, while foreign powers fuel the conflict. Yemen isn't just on the brink, it's clinging to the cliff's edge. Society is shattered and peace remains elusive. Yemen is a stark warning of how modern warfare can destroy a nation. Libya, once hopeful after Gaddafi's fall, now trapped in chaos. The power vacuum left behind has split the country between rival governments and militias, each backed by foreign powers. Oil wealth, instead of uniting, has become a prize in a brutal contest. Ordinary Libyans face shifting front lines, unreliable services, and constant danger. Human traffickers thrive, turning Libya into a deadly transit point for migrants. Ceasefires are fragile and deep divisions persist. Real power lies with those holding the guns, not the government. Libya's promise has faded into a grim reality of fragmentation and foreign interference. Afghanistan. After 2 decades of war, the Taliban's return in 2021 plunged the country into uncertainty. The collapse was swift, leaving Afghans desperate and fearful. Women's rights have been erased, with girls banned from education and women excluded from public life. The economy has imploded. Nearly the entire population faces poverty and hunger. The Taliban now face insurgency from ISIS-K, adding to the chaos. Afghanistan is isolated, bankrupt, and ruled by an unrecognized regime. The humanitarian crisis is immense, with millions on the brink of starvation. The world faces a moral dilemma: how to help Afghans without empowering the regime. Afghanistan's future hangs in the balance. Lebanon, once the Paris of the Middle East, now in economic freefall. Decades of corruption and mismanagement led to a financial collapse. The Lebanese pound has lost nearly all its value. Life savings are trapped in banks, and poverty has exploded. Triple-digit inflation, fuel and medicine shortages, and near-constant blackouts define daily life. The 2020 Beirut port explosion was a symbol of state failure and criminal negligence. The political elite blocks reform, clinging to power as the country unravels. Hospitals and essential services are collapsing. The Lebanese people are resilient but pushed to the limit. Lebanon is hollowed out by its own leaders. It's a heartbreaking story of a nation in freefall. Sudan, Africa's third-largest country, caught between hope and heartbreak. After ousting a dictator in 2019, a fragile power-sharing deal gave way to a military coup in 2021. Protests for democracy continue, met with brutal crackdowns. The economy is in crisis, with aid suspended and inflation soaring. The revolution's promise is on life support, threatened by military rule and ethnic tensions. The people's courage is remarkable, but the future is uncertain. Sudan's fate hangs on whether the will of the people can overcome the military's grip. The world is watching. Sudan teeters on the edge. Haiti, caught in a relentless cycle of disaster and dysfunction. Political collapse followed the 2021 assassination of its president, leaving a power vacuum and no elected leadership. Armed gangs now control much of the capital, terrorizing the population and crippling the economy. Natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, compound the misery, destroying infrastructure and deepening poverty. Hospitals and services are paralyzed by gang blockades and fuel shortages. Hunger and disease are rampant. The economy is in freefall. The government is powerless, and the international community is wary of intervening. Haiti is a nation on its knees, desperate for relief. The storm of calamities keeps raging. Haiti edges ever closer to the abyss. Myanmar, once a fragile success story, now plunged back into darkness by a 2021 military coup. The military seized power, arresting elected leaders and crushing democracy. Massive civil disobedience and protests were met with brutal violence. When peaceful protest failed, resistance turned armed, plunging the country into civil war. The economy has collapsed, poverty has soared, and healthcare is in ruins. The military blocks aid and weaponizes suffering against its own people. Myanmar is a pariah state, condemned but shielded by some regional powers. The dream of democracy is replaced by a nightmare of war. The resistance is courageous, but the junta's grip is ruthless. Myanmar's future is deeply uncertain. Zimbabwe, rich in beauty and resources but trapped in a cycle of political and economic decay. Mugabe's ouster in 2017 brought hope, but little real change. The ruling party remains entrenched, with corruption and repression still rampant. The economy is unstable, inflation soars, and US dollars are scarce. Public services have collapsed, and poverty is widespread. Elections are marred by intimidation and reform is elusive. Zimbabwe is not collapsing overnight but decaying slowly. The promise of liberation has soured into a daily struggle for survival. 10 countries, 10 stories of struggle and resilience. These aren't just headlines, they're the daily reality for millions. Understanding these crises is the first step toward change. Their stories remind us how fragile stability can be and how strong people can be in the face of chaos. Thank you for watching and caring about these stories. If you found this valuable, please consider subscribing. Stay safe, stay informed, and see you next time.